One thing I found interesting about the play and I really liked was how it was written. I'll talk more about it in question five, but I really liked it because it just made it more dramatic for me. It kept me more interested. One perspective I liked thought was interesting was the father and his interactions with Elliot. He didn't seem to have a positive experience in Vietnam, and I thought it was interesting how initially he didn't really discourage Elliot more from trying to back out of the military. He was upset, but he didn't really try to do anything about it. And then once he was in the military, he didn't try to support him more and tell him what worked for him in Vietnam, how to stay alive, really. So I just thought that was an interesting interaction. And then the second one was how similar Elliot and his father's lives were at the end. Elliot's reading the letters uh, that his pop sent to Guinea, and I thought it was interesting to see how similar their lives were and how they connected. Um, I just thought that was an interesting perspective. And then one question I had was barbed wire and its use in the military, and I found that it was used to slow attackers down and make them more vulnerable. And this just helped me understand Elliot's situation more and why he was stuck in Iraq and barbed wire, and had this event happen to him. I think the play reinforces the idea of almost like how humble soldiers are. I think you see a lot, especially with heroes from the militaries. They're not quick to talk about what happened, talk about how they saved people's lives or got out of a situation. They're very humble. I think we see this especially in the interviews. Elliot Hetty has several interviews throughout the play, and almost every time the interview brings up his injury and how he's a hero, he almost quickly changes the subject. He gives maybe like a quick little answer that isn't that meaningful, and then tries to change the subject to something uh, more kind of fun. Like he doesn't like to talk about it, and I think we see that a lot with soldiers. They're humble and they're not quick to proclaim that they're a hero, and they don't like to talk about um, the events that they had to go through. Um, and then the play is a Fugue play because people narrate the actions of the characters. So you see Guinea Pops and Grandpops narrating the actions of Elliot in Iraq, and just different instances in the play where the narration is narrated by others than the character who's like acting what the narrating saying. Um, and I think this one made the play a lot more dramatic. You have Elliot in a situation and he's trying to get through the situation. And then you have these voices from the outside that are constantly changing, explaining what's happening, what Elliot's thinking, what's going on. And I think that made it more dramatic. It made the play for me like more upbeat and intense, which I think is very representative of the situation. Um, I think it also shows um, how it influences people around like the soldier. So Elliot was in the war, and he's not the only one affected by what's happening. All his family and loved ones are also affected, and I think their voices explaining what's going on shows how it matters to them as well as Elliot as far as what's going on in the war for Elliot. And then the last thing um, I think is how it's hard for soldiers to retell what happened, talk about the war stories. So you see other voices telling what happened for him at some points because potentially he maybe doesn't want to talk about it, and it's hard for him to talk about it. And I think that's these three things is really what the playwright was trying to get at by having the play written in this way. And then one question I had were you surprised by the father not discouraging Elliot, or I guess not taking more action to try to stop Elliot um, from joining the military given his experience? And did you like the writing style, and why?